In this video, I expand upon how I wrote bad input code and constructed an entire game's feeling around it. This is partially based on a talk I gave at GodotCon where my games kinda became the talk of the entire con for how mean they were. So here's that knowledge for you, dear viewer. Enjoy! Today we're gonna look at Snuff Puppy Shelter. Snuff Puppy Shelter began with my desire to make a command line game where you type in commands like in a terminal. If you're a programmer, you probably know what I'm talking about, but in case you're not familiar, a command line interface, or CLI, is like what we had before graphical user interfaces. Instead of folder and application icons to navigate your files, you had to know where exactly the files were on your computer, navigate there by typing commands, and if you got something wrong, the system would often only offer you limited assistance in fixing your commands. It's 80s shit. So I got to writing the input function and honestly just did not know how to properly set this up, so my project looked like this. In the input map, I created an input action that holds all the letters of the ASCII alphabet, and a second action for the numbers, because as I learned, you can only assign 32 inputs to a single action in Godot. Then, if you look into the code, you can see that we do some horrendous spaghetti coding to get the actually pressed key, and boom, we can type arbitrary text into our game. The issue this quickly presented was that inputs got ghosted, since all inputs are part of the same input action and we only care about inputs that we just pressed, which gives them an automatic implicit cooldown. At least I think this is what happened. Honestly, this is so far away from anything resembling good code, there might also just be other things at play here. Honestly, just let me know in the comments if you know something. But ultimately, the result is a game where you can't type as quickly as you could physically type. This felt horrendous, but the game was meant to be mean and abrasive, so I stuck with it. And then I leaned into it even harder. Another design decision I made was the expansion of backspace. It deletes the entire line instead of the last character, making you suffer unreasonably hard for mistakes you're unfairly more likely to make. It's a beautifully hellish cycle. The end result is a game that makes you feel like you have stupid stunted puppy paws, which is just perfect for the subject matter at hand. Or paw. If you only wanted to know what I did to make the game have this really tactile feeling, there you go. End of video. But I recently thought a lot about the appeal of such experiences, the underlying reason for why I would want to make something that is this grating to play, and I came up with a few interesting psychological game design points that I want to present to you today. First of all, an input system like this naturally slows down gameplay. This can engender introspection, as you can't easily glance over what you're typing. The game is about many different things, but dominant themes are selling out your own marginalized community and the forces of structural oppression, namely transmisogyny. The player is forced to uncomfortably sit longer with the content of structural cycles of abuse. This also feeds into the counterweight of culture at play here. The restricted gameplay options restrain self-expression. This stands in contrast to most mainstream games, where games are conventionally framed as power fantasies. Games aren't understood as tools of oppression, which I think is a blatantly ridiculous proposition. Games as cultural artifacts can reinforce cultural attitudes. Just look at any Call of Duty. Making anti-game games like this can become a critical examination of the role we as game makers, as cultural workers, have with our audiences. And on the other side of the screen, players that know these cycles and machines of oppression feel seen and understood. That's important to me. On a more production-oriented side, I also want to say that Snuff Puppy Shelter took 2 days to make. It was part of a game jam called the Dither Jam. That is such a short time frame, but enough to let me polish the core of the mechanics and drive them to their extremes. If I ever want to revisit a similar text-based mechanic in a future game, I now have a frame of reference for the types of emotions I can elicit with the help of this mechanic. I also want to say that working on art as abrasive as Snuff Puppy Shelter is very fun and cathartic. It was genuinely cool to discover this input method, and the subject matter felt novel to me at the time. Deliberately slowing down the game and being mean to the player forces them to sit with the content longer, which engenders introspection about its themes. As I mentioned earlier, the themes can get pretty intense, but that's unavoidable. If you want to see more of my ideological antics subsuming themselves into my games, subscribe below for future videos. But for now, I hope it's evident that I'm big into making games that give you the tools to investigate the world we live in. Furthermore, I do not believe that you can have a serious conversation about the topics of our society if you do anything but the bare maximum. And games as art pieces are always having conversations with politics. As a game developer, I am a political subject with political ideas and ideologies. I do not want to present any of my ideas in anything but their barely maximal form. Not leaning into your own ideas as hard as possible is the way of the coward and is not the way to heaven. The infuriating input methods at play here and the personal themes and just the process of treating the player like a worthless dog lead to an unnerving experience that can even potentially break them into a new and better gender. That is so fucking awesome. If you want to, you can just like play it for yourself in your browser on itch.io with the link on screen or in the description, whatever. Thank you so much for your time. Let me know your thoughts about any of this in the comments down below. You can support me on Patreon. I'll have a link for that in the description as well. And I hope to see you around. Bye.